We're also still waiting for one of our panelists, but I think he will join us soon. Thank you. Okay, if you're just joining us, just give us a few more minutes and we'll get started. All right, so it's 5 minutes after 6, so we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. Welcome everyone to our webinar with boarding schools. And this morning I am going to we're going to talk a little bit about, the fact that, Indian school, physical school in India has been closed for over 15 months. Students are fatigued, parents are worried, a lot of, there's a lot of learning loss happening. So I think there's a lot of parents and families out there who are really looking for solutions to the problem that make sense for their family. And it's not an easy decision to move a student or to move a family or to change schools. So we wanted to offer this opportunity for you to understand more about it as you get started thinking in this through this process. If this is interesting to you, or I think some of you on here are also counselors, so it may be interesting to some of the families that speak to you. But yeah, welcome. And I am Kim Dixit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Red Pen. I have, worked for the last, the Red Pen's been around for 10 years, but I think in terms of boarding schools, it really sort of got going about 5 to 7 years ago. We do often regularly see interest from families when it comes to, what are some global opportunities for boarding schools, and for various reasons, which I always find really interesting. It's always quite enjoyable to work with boarding school families because everyone has a very different story. So that's us, that's the Red Pen. And as you may know, we do support students and applicants through education choices and decisions at all levels. So not just boarding school, we also do college, undergraduate college, MBA, postgrad, and even profile development for college. So students who want to work on building competitive application way ahead of time and start early. So we do offer a full range of services, but like I said, the boarding school piece is something that we've been doing for a long time and really are all interested in it. My co-founder, Namita Mehta, if any of you know her, Namita is herself a boarding school product from the UK. So she's always been very enthusiastic about it. This morning, I want to introduce our panelists. Like I said, we are missing one, which is Guy Emmett from Scarborough School. Scarborough is in the UK. So we have three geographies represented here today. And by no means are these the only 3 geographies where you can go to boarding school, but they seem to be the ones who are doing the best with students right now in terms of managing the pandemic. There are lots and lots of boarding schools in India, but unfortunately those are still not open. So that as an option, that's not really, that doesn't work for most families. So to solve this particular problem. But Guy Emmett's school, Scarborough College, is in the UK, and there's a lot of amazing features about that school. One is that, in the UK, it's one of the few IB through boarding schools. That means that they offer the PYP, MYP, and the IB diploma program throughout. So no IGCSE, no A levels. So that's a very different kind of model for the UK. And the other real interesting factor about Scarborough is it's a very, very sporty school and offers all sports in all seasons and things like that, but has a year-round cricket training academy that is attached, that is affiliated with the school. So that's something that I think a lot of our families, a lot of our cricket crazy children really love to hear about. So when Guy comes on, he can tell you more about that. I also have Meta Dial from Northfield Mount Herman School in Connecticut. Meta is the director of international admissions.
Massachusetts.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, Massachusetts. You're right. I don't know why it says this in my notes. Yes, gosh, Massachusetts, and about 2 hours away from Boston, right, Meta?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So Northfield Mount Herman has really interesting programs as well, great educational opportunities. One of the things I always find really interesting is that every student, it's a 9 to 12 school, grade 9 to 12. One of the most interesting things I always like to tell families about the school is there is a work requirement, and students can work in somewhere in school, and Meta can tell you more about the details of it, but work in the school in different capacities. But one of those opportunities is on the farm. So there's a farm on the school and students can work there. And I think that's a really amazing and unique opportunity for students, especially our students who are typically from very urban areas. And the other thing that is, new and interesting about Northfield Mount Herman is their new $40 million Math and Science Center. Again, Meta can tell you a little bit more about that. My third panelist is Beth Dyson from, good morning, Beth. I'm sorry, it's morning for you. Good evening. She's the Assistant Director of International Admissions at College St. Charles in Switzerland. The amazing thing about the school is that they have, being in Switzerland, they've really been able to keep things running almost completely as, I won't say normal, but compared to us, I think very normal. The students only missed 3 weeks of school in the entire pandemic. So I think Beth will tell you a lot more about what her school can offer and also, what they've done during the pandemic. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're just going to kind of do a panel. I'm going to ask a panel discussion. I'm going to ask them each, questions about their schools and different aspects of it, and they can, and they'll have the opportunity to answer. And the other thing is that if anyone has questions, please post them in the Q&A box, and we will get to them definitely. Either if they're relevant throughout the webinar, we'll answer them as we go, and I'll just bring them up to the speakers. If they're not, then we will try to answer all questions at the end. So do ask your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those. All right. So let's get started. I will start with Beth. I'd like to know how your school managed, the global pandemic when it started, and how that impacted international students. So I'll let you speak a little bit about that, and also tell us a little about the school in general, some highlights that parents might want to know.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. So I work in international admissions at College St. Charles, which is located in Switzerland. The term college for our school refers to middle school, and so the full name of our school is College et Lycée St. Charles, meaning middle school and high school, which is where we accept boarding students starting from age 11. So this year obviously has been maybe the second strangest year in the school's existence. The school has existed for 120 years, so it actually experienced the Great Flu pandemic in the early 1900s. But this has definitely been a unique situation. Our school, I'm very pleased to say, thanks to its location in Switzerland and thanks to the small community that we're a part of, was able to contain all of our concerns very quickly. And so when the world started to shut down, international students were given a choice to return to their home country or to stay on campus. And most parents, understandably so, wanted their children to return home. So we were able to facilitate all of our students returning to their parents. But then within 3 weeks, we were able to start opening our school again. So our teachers went into the pandemic prepared for a switch to virtual learning. They went prepared, making sure that students went home with the technology they needed, that they had the platforms in place in order for students to extend learning. And they didn't take a break. Even though we switched from in-person classes to online, our students went home on a Friday, and by Monday they were back on online learning. So there was no gap in the continuity of learning. And then within 3 weeks, we were able to begin bringing students back on campus, starting with our youngest students, because the medical advice at the time was that younger students were not passing the virus in the same way that older students were. But by the end of the year, we were able to welcome our senior students back. This year, obviously, it's been a continued challenge. The peak in Switzerland was in October and November of this year. And during that time, we were able to keep students on campus. The government had made it a priority to keep students learning, to keep the next generation being invested in. And so we were able to make sure that our students were on campus learning. We had mitigation strategies in place that I'll talk about a little bit later. But our students this year have had a great time just diving in deeper. And what we've seen, because of kind of going through this collective stressful event together, we've seen students picking up initiatives on their own, extending their experience with each other, which has been a beautiful thing to see. As we've had international students joining our campus for the boarding program, there's been various needs of quarantine, and our students have been very concerned for their colleagues who are in quarantine. They've created quarantine care packages. They've created a schedule for phone calls so that students are able to feel connected to the school family, even in the midst of kind of periods of isolation. We have been very lucky to have be very untouched, I'll say, by the virus. There have been a few cases. They've been quickly isolated. We've been able to make sure that there's no spread, which has just been a really excellent thing. That all stems from the great leadership of our headmistress and our wonderful team of expert leaders. So, like I said, this year's been unlike anything else. Our school is also a certified IB World School. We have the MYP program, which is the middle years program, and the diploma program, which is the last 2 years of high school where you earn your diploma. And those programs have really just facilitated adding to our curriculum. We also have a track available for the Swiss program, which is the Swiss Matura, which is very, it's a balance between a similarity, and there's some similarities and some differences between the IB. Both are incredibly detailed and deep, with the IB program extending students' learning to be creative problem solvers. And the Swiss Matura, I would say, is more content heavy, more content specific. So this has been a great year. Our students, we were able to think through what were our non-negotiables for our students, which included things, this will sound funny maybe, but including things like our ski week. Every year in February, our students take a week as an entire school and travel to the mountains together to learn ski safety, to learn how to practice the sport, and to just have a community building time. And we were able to maintain that with safety protocols, making sure that students were able to travel safely with their pods, making sure that we were able to facilitate their experience. So our boarding students this year have had, our non-negotiables were that students needed to get off campus. They needed to build community with each other. And we were able to do that. Now it looks different. We weren't able to travel through Europe as we normally do, but we have been able to make sure students get off campus throughout Switzerland and visit and benefit from the other things that the country has to offer. I'll also touch on our academic programs. We have invested quite a bit. We're a 120-year-old school. We've invested in the last 4 years renovating the building to make sure that it's up to date, cutting edge, with technology infused in all of the classrooms. as well as rebuilding and expanding our science laboratories. They have been built out with the supervision of college level scientists who have facilitated and helped us make sure that they are state of the art and able to facilitate students learning through doing, learning through practicing experiments, so that their classroom experience on sciences is not only theoretical knowledge, but also hands-on by doing experiments in biology and chemistry and physics. So thank you so much again for having me. I'll stop here and pass the mic.
Thank you, Beth, for that introduction and information about how your school has managed the pandemic. Just for those of you who are just now joining us, I will just remind everyone that we have 3 panelists with us. We have Beth Dyson from College St. Charles, and I forgot to ask you guys to put your school to rename yourselves with your school name, but I guess I'll just repeat it. And Meta Dale from Northwood Mount Hermon in Massachusetts, USA. And we have Guy Emmett from Scarborough College in the UK. So Guy has now joined us. I hope everything is okay, Guy. So it's nice to see you this evening. So I will now let Meta introduce her school and talk about the year that has been for Northwood Mount Hermon in Massachusetts.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Again, my name is Meta Dial. I am the Director of International Admission here at Northfield Mount Hermon. I am also an alum. And I was an international student. So it's always great to be able to come back and kind of come full circle. Northfield Mount Hermon is a boarding school in Western Massachusetts. We are 145 years old this year. And we are part of the 8 School Association, which is Andover, Exeter, Choate, Hotchkiss, St. Paul's, Deerfield, and NMH all work together to really make sure that we work towards having the best schools possible here in the United States. We were started as a farm to help students who could not afford to go to school to educate women first. And since then, we have grown from that farm to a school that takes 9th grade students all the way through PG. PG is a year where students use as a transition year between their 12th grade year and their first year at university. We have 650 students from over 54 countries. And it's great to have all that diversity on campus. And this year it was a little more difficult given the pandemic. Our school responded quite quickly to the pandemic. Our students came to us August 8th and quarantined on campus for 2 weeks as a school before classes started. We performed on a rotating basis testing on our students, our faculty, and our staff, and did a total of over 10,000 tests this year for our community. We were lucky that in Massachusetts, we are the state with actually the most strict state mandates. Even now, even though the CDC in the United States and the health organizations all said that we can walk around unmasked and be unmasked inside if we are vaccinated, Massachusetts is just getting to the point where they're releasing their mask mandates for indoors, but we have not released that yet. But we're excited to say that we had 1% of students come back positive this year, and 1% with faculty staff of those 10,000, meaning 10,000 combined. So, and they were students who, and we also tested people who were off campus. So that 1% actually were off campus. We had 2 students who were day students who came back positive, and 2 faculty members who didn't live on campus came back positive. When that happened, we actually moved all the day students on campus and shut our campus down even further. So our classes were in person, which was great. There were students who were in our online lab program because their visas didn't come through because their countries were shut down. The embassies and the consulates were shut down, so they couldn't get their visas. as those started to loosen, there are certain points at the beginning of each semester and at the end of each semester where students could come in onto campus, quarantine on campus, and then join our in-person classes. But they would be online throughout this. We also never closed. Once they came on August 8th, our students never left us. We didn't want people to feel unsafe traveling home. So they had the choice of staying with us throughout the year. We had a number of international students, of course, with 54 countries. It's a little difficult to see if all of them can get home. So we even had students with us over the winter break, New Year's. We ended up canceling our spring break because we thought that would be too exposed for students, given it's the same time as the college spring break. And so we canceled spring break and just graduated to 2 weeks early, which was fantastic. Our kids were in sports, our kids were in classes. Our kids were able to thrive this year, which was fantastic. I know there are some students who stayed online all year again at home, and they were so sad to not come back. We had a few of them come back the last month of classes so they could graduate on campus, but that's about it. COVID has been really great for Northfield Mount Herman because we've been able to build. Again, as Kim said, we are finishing off our Gilder Center, which is a 4,000 square meter new Gilder Center for Math and Science that will be opening this fall. We are redoing our gym, one of our gyms, and redoing our hockey rink and our fitness center. We just built our river house for our crew team. And we will be redoing more of the dorms and some of the faculty housing. We have a very, very strong sports team. When it comes to basketball, we're ranked number 3 in the country. Our soccer team is ranked, we have the most championships in our league. So we're always really excited to say that in girls and boys. But we have over 60 sports teams. We have 6 orchestras. We have 6 different choirs. And so please check our programs out because it's one place where we're really excited that we know that we can holistically develop our students on our campus. All right, and I'll pass it over. I think Guy's next.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, Meta. Someone just asked on the chat, and I wanted to get you guys to speak about this, and I'll come back to Meta, you and Beth, but Guy, when you do speak about Scarborough, could you please also mention when, a little bit about the application process and specifically when is the right time for students to think about enrolling? And if we don't get to that right away, we can always catch up at the end. But yes, good morning, good evening. This is Guy Emmett from Scarborough College in the UK, and I did introduce the school a little bit when you weren't here, but please go ahead, Guy, and tell us about your school and about how you managed the pandemic.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you for the introduction. Hello to everybody. Hearing about the orchestras in the last school was very exciting as well. So we're certainly not a school with 6 orchestras. We're smaller, I suppose, Harry Potter type British boarding school of nearly 500 children in a town of Scarborough, which is by the seaside. Right now, Scarborough is an extremely popular place because people are staying in England for their holidays, and it is a seaside resort. So that gives an indication to where I'm looking from a school and from a town that is getting many visitors as well, is how have we managed to keep it safe? So the first point is it's been a tough year, but it's been a year where people have, as a community, as a school, and as people have got close together. So I just wanted to start from a pupil angle that 12 months ago, we had many British schools sent their children home at Easter time as news of the pandemic hitting the shores of England was front page news, of course. And we did it differently. We kept our school open and our children stayed with us during Easter, and some of them have just stayed with us during the recent Easter holiday as well. The emotional side of that is, I know we've had children who haven't been home for nearly 2 years in some aspects, because they've been worried about quarantine and things such as that. However, they're graduating this year with great grades. We've given them a wonderful experience where possible, and I'm pleased to say that I believe that online learning will be a thing of the past at Scarborough College. So in recent weeks and months, we've been in lessons. We've had no pupils in terms of year groups, sent home. And this summer, I mean, today is a wonderful example. We've got tennis fixtures, athletics fixtures, cricket fixtures, all happening. And nearly 80% of our school is taking part in sport today. But we also have a walk going on, which is linked to Duke of Edinburgh at the school, which is across our Jurassic coastline in the town of Scarborough. The only downside to that walk, it began at 2 a.m. Because it is a famous walk that we undertake as a school, which is a 50-mile walk. So good luck to all the students who arrive shortly. But in terms of the process, undoubtedly, we've got 2 students who are from India, who have been at the school. They've got guardianship families which they've stayed with in the UK as well. And we've just tried to support them, whether it be emotionally, through the exam period, and also through giving them what they love to do, their sport or their activities outside of school. What I would say is the children across the world, not just in Scarborough, are incredibly resilient, and they've come together and they've withstood any concerns that we may have about how they may deal with this situation. But now I'm speaking from a country that at first, I think people would say, have questioned how this country handled it. But right now, as a school, we're back to normal. With sporting activities, music and so on. And we're looking ahead to September to welcome in students from across the world. We also have great sympathy for countries that are not in the position of where Britain is now, and we're aware that this can change at any point. So I just wanted to give you a unique situation that is happening at Scarborough College, which I believe will be rolled out across schools in England. So I want you to imagine that on Monday, there is a positive case at Scarborough College. I hope not, but recently we did have one student had a positive case. What that would mean in schools across the UK would be that bubble, as we call it, or that group of children in that class would be at home for 2 weeks isolating. We have been part of what is called daily contact testing. We've become a trial school, one of 2 boarding schools in England that are in this position, along with some day schools and state schools across the UK. Instead of pupils being sent home, what happened was children came in each day and they were tested by our nurses. And if they were negative, they came into school. And they were tested for 8 days. Not one other case was positive, not one other case. And no year groups, no children were sent home. And this, we are led to believe, will be the future for schools. That a big concern has been of mine is my own daughter spent 2 weeks at home with a case in her class and the missed education that she then obviously suffers. However, what I now believe is, and we're very fortunate to be one of 2 boarding schools in the UK, is that daily contact testing will replace it and that schools will begin to be as normal as possible. Now, of course, we're doing that in a position from where we've had the vaccine. So I am 41 years of age, soon to be 42. I've had both my vaccines and so has my wife, which is showing that whereas Britain started off in a position of condemnation of how we were handling the crisis in many ways, to now be in a position of, I'm very confident that we can look forward to welcoming students, of course, from India, but from all parts of the globe. In terms of the application process for a school, it is, I can speak on behalf of what we do. A vital part of the application process is working with agencies like Red Pen and then working with the families. And that involves doing Skypes, Zooms, and interviews such as this. But in all our schools, we will have a registrar, who will then deal with the paperwork and support and guide you during that process, whether that be a visa process, whether that be applying for the various documents that are required. It is not a painstaking process. It is not overcomplicated, and all our schools, not just our school, we have to be very good at it, and we will help you along the way. And that happens whether that is students now from Germany or Spain or Italy, for example, or students that are from India. We are very experienced at it. So I would welcome any questions in terms of the application process as well. But essentially, you speak to an agency such as Red Pen, find out which school suits your child, because we're not near London, for example. You may want to be near London. We're a cricket mad school, but you may not like cricket, and you may think, I want to go to a school that loves soccer, for example. We play it, but we're not the best school in the country for soccer. So you need to speak to them and see which school would suit you. And then the process begins with interviews, with exam entries, and following the guidelines that each country has for admission to there. In terms of when to apply, the sooner the better. We right now, as a school, in a pandemic, would not expect to be full, but we are full, and we have a waiting list for September. Many schools are not in that position, and I'm proud to say that we are. So therefore, we're taking admissions for the following year. And the sooner that you apply for the following year at our school or at other schools, the better. So it's as simple as that. I always turn around and use a silly analogy. If I'm planning to go on a holiday, of course, I've done some last minute ones and it pays off and it's great. But if I want to plan the best holiday, I will do it months in advance. That's a holiday. This is your son or daughter's education, which to me, being from a family of teachers, is the most important choice that you can possibly make. So I'll end on by saying you have a great opportunity to choose schools around the world. There are wonderful schools in Switzerland, Canada, America. There's great schools in India. And I wish you every success. But I think it's time for any questions. You would have had so much information, so forgive me if I've missed anything off from there. One final tip, sorry, in application process. Don't hesitate to see if you can speak to a pupil who's currently at the school as well. If you think that would help, I'm sure you will get a feel from the pupils, because I'm a biased headmaster who loves my school dearly, but actually perhaps a pupil can give an insight to your child, and also it will give them a friend before they arrive, because no matter how confident they are, they will be nervous, and so will you. Your son or daughter's traveling to the other side of the world. But the number one thing is we will make sure that they are safe and happy, whether that's USA or Switzerland or the UK.
Great. Thank you so much, Guy. It's great to hear from you about Scarborough and all that you guys have managed to do through the year. It sounds fantastic. Okay, so let me move on to ask a specific question of Meta about what Northfield Mount Hermon in Massachusetts is planning for 21-22. What will campus life look like? Are you planning, is it face-to-face learning? Are you having a sort of learning bubbles? Any adjustments to your curriculum? Anything families should know about, how you're planning next year?
So we're fully back to normal in the sense that if students don't have their vaccines, when they come to us, they quarantine for 2 weeks and then we help them get the vaccines. By the time that we left campus on May 16th, every kid who was 16 and above had their vaccines. I was vaccinated within the first round. By March 6th, I think I got my first vaccination. And so we've all been, our whole school was pretty much fully vaccinated except our freshmen, which was great. And now that the 12 and up, we expect all people who live in the United States or who have access to the vaccines to come in and don't have to quarantine. Everyone else, they'll be here for 2 weeks, and within that 2-week quarantine time, we'll get them their vaccinations. We are back to regular schedules. We are back to competitions, sports competitions, music festivals. The only thing we probably won't do is travel. We have a pretty robust travel program, and we won't travel quite yet. So if you are interested in applying, our deadline is typically February 1st the following year. We are full. At this point, I may have room for a girl through attrition, but we've been full since April 10th. But our deadline is February 1st. Decisions are released March 10th. And then those accepted, let us know by April 10th. You can, in the United States, we have two programs. We have the SAO, which is a standard application online, and the Gateway to Prep online. There are over 500 boarding schools in the United States. And you can use either of these applications to apply to a number of them. So it's considered a common application, so you don't have to rewrite all your applications. I know when I applied, I had to handwrite every single one. I'm kind of dating myself here. So Guy was brave enough to give you his age. I won't go there, but I will say that I had to handwrite every single one of my applications.
And Meta, can students apply at any grade or any particular grade that
so
they
for
should think?
us, there's definitely schools that they have entry points where ninth grade is their entry point. We believe that we add a different dynamic to our school when we have students apply for every grade. The only grade we don't accept is 12th grade because there are, state regulations that you have to have a certain number of credits in order to graduate, and you coming in typically in 12th grade doesn't allow you to fulfill all those requirements. But we accept 9th, 10th, 11th, and in our postgraduate program as well. So yeah,
Okay,
and
great.
I agree with Guy. Reach out to us. If you go on our website, you can connect with a current parent. We do have Indian families with us now. We have one from Bangalore, a couple from Mumbai, a couple from Delhi, a couple Indian Americans as well. So we're happy to connect you with current families.
Great. Beth, would you like to talk a little bit about how you are managing, whether you have space this fall? I think Meta just said her school is full, but maybe has space. So any details around space, application, and how families should kind of move forward?
Happily. It's been so exciting to hear from these other schools. I'm just so excited to hear what everyone's doing and how people are progressing. We are the smallest school here on the call today with 250 students total. But we have 3 spaces left for next year. So we are still accepting students. And that being said, in the same situation as my colleagues have mentioned, there's always the opportunity for the following year. So, and those applications, once they come in, we do rolling admissions. And so once the applications come in, we try to respond. We respond within 3 weeks about, final decision. And in that time between application and the 3 weeks later, we have interviews and admissions testing that happen. We have pivoted our admissions testing to being fully remote. And so we have an agreement with parents that outlines the testing environment that we ask you to set up at home and set parents up for students to take that test in the comfort of their own home and return it to us digitally. So that is an opportunity that we've kind of taken advantage of in the midst of the pandemic, just recognizing that not everyone all over the world has the ability to visit with an agent or a consultant and sit in the office and take the exam. So we've made a few adaptations to our application process, but as I mentioned, it is rolling. We do have a limited number of spaces left for the fall and are excited to be welcoming students in the fall. Our situation, similar to what Meta just described, we will be back to business as usual. We have students are finishing up their last week of school this week. And so students over the age of 12 have had the opportunity to be vaccinated. So our community is seeking their vaccinations. We've been very lucky that vaccinations in Switzerland were an early, they were able to acquire vaccines early and roll them out to our school community very quickly. So I think as Guy mentioned, we just are really incredibly thankful for the opportunity that was available to us and empathetic to how that's not the situation all over the world. So we're excited for the fall and to see, if life get back to whatever normal is, and hope that we're on the trajectory that it will continue to be business as usual.
Great, thank you so much. And Guy, anything more to add about your school, what you expect for next year? Extracurricular activities, I think you mentioned a lot about that's all happening, and also anything about the application process. I think you already mentioned most of this, but I'll let you add.
Just to say, lessons being back to normal, because what we had at this stages this year was children were being in certain classrooms, and the teachers were moving around school to kind of make sure there was a safe environment. But there's just a feeling amongst all our schools of great excitement that come September, the dining halls are back to normal, the classrooms are the way they are. The last few weeks we've talked about catching up, and the standard of online teaching and the extra work that teachers are doing, that doesn't necessarily mean catching up with math, science, English, because we have great teachers who will support the children. It's actually catching up with each other. What I'm really excited about is seeing the 11-year-olds spending time with the 14-year-olds and so on. So in terms of extracurricular activities, I mentioned before the Harry Potter type school. A key part of Harry Potter type schools are house competitions. And I've not realized how much I've missed those house competitions in the mixing of year groups. So whether that's doing short story, music competitions or sport competitions. And just to highlight one event that's happening in a couple of weeks' time, we're doing an outside concert to showcase music and drama, performing arts students and having families. So what this has given schools is that once we all get back to normal, we're better schools than what we were before, because we've all come up with new ways. A rival school with their outdoor cinema that's happening, for the boarders at the weekend, to outside music concerts, which now are going to be, it's a bit like last night, the proms and combination, which are famous events in England. I can't wait for these events. And the application process, everybody said everything. February seems quite a good deadline, but you can always try good schools. For example, we may be full, but what happens if somebody pulls out? They can't come to the school. So we contacted 2 children, English children living in Portugal this week, who have now got places at the school. So of course, try these schools right now, but preparation is key. And we're from age 11 that we have students there. But I would say, have an honest conversation with the school as well. So if someone said to me, age 11, I've got a daughter age 11, I'd say, we don't have enough younger girls where I'd feel comfortable that we're the right school. 13, 14, yes. Boys, we have a group of boys age 11 and 12, because I wouldn't want your daughter to be alone. I'd question my own morals in that aspect. I hope that answers.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think that gives us a really clear picture of how, the dynamics on the campus. And I totally agree with you. I think everyone, kids, parents, everyone is missing competitions and, getting together and playing, I think house competitions, you mentioned that is something that I think is really, really kids are ready for, families are ready for. And it's a very strong culture in India as well. So I know a lot of kids are missing it. I just want to say to the audience and to the attendees and everyone that, as all of these schools have mentioned, there are spaces available in schools around the world still for this year, for the fall, starting in the fall of 2021. And we do have families contacting us, and I'm in touch with many schools about the spaces. But as everyone on this call has said, it depends, a school may be full, they may have one space, they may not be the right school for you, even though they have 10 spaces. So it's a very sort of nuanced process to get through in these last minute situations and find the right school, but it is still possible. So do get in touch with the schools or get in touch with us to help you do that. And we're working actively on that for several families right now, because I think a lot of people, just with this, I mean, this has been going on for quite a long time now. And I think people have gone back and forth and wondered and worried and expected school to open and then didn't. But I think right now, a lot of parents are just kind of ready to make the decision. It's summer and, they're kind of fed up with their kids being online, and Indian schools really haven't gotten clear directives about what to expect. So I wanted each of you, for a family that's maybe been going back and forth on this in their mind or considering it, what advice do you have? How can they kind of help make that decision? Go ahead, Guy. It seems like you want to say.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, if we do the IB in the sixth form, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're full right now. So we've got more applications from European students, but we've also, there's been more applications from British students who feel that a boarding school, for example, we've stayed open so they can be here, even if it was to go to online learning. Actually, there are many great A-level schools that still got spaces. It's not because they're not a great school. It's because, for example, many parts of the world where they will have students come to their school, it's been more difficult. So actually what you may do, you may find through Kim an incredible school that has got a place right now that might not normally have a place. I think of our universities, the uncertainty. I've got so many children who have now decided they want to go to university. They've applied, but that reflects how schools, the position of schools are as well. So in terms of, sorry, Kim, just repeat the question.
The question was just, what piece of advice do you have for parents who are on the fence?
In terms of it here, I go for it. I mean, your children have had a year of being online on a computer. I've seen it with my 4-year-old, but I've seen it above all with the teenagers in the houses. They've been through a seriously tough time. And you've got an opportunity here to send your children to great schools across the world for whatever courses you want to do. And the most important thing for me in life, other than family and love and time for your children, is education. And I think the next few months and year, we can't afford to spend too much more time online. Yes, we're good at it. We're a Google school, brilliant. But if we were doing it for 18 months or longer, I think children are missing out on so much. And I don't just mean reading and writing. I mean your child socially. The reason why I believe, I'll pick one of my senior, he's a Cambridge graduate. He's the reason why he'll be a headmaster one day, no problem. The reason why he's going to be a head teacher one day is because of his social skills and how he is with people. Education has opened the doors. Your children need to be parts of teams or trying things they've not done before. I mean, who knows? It could be swimming, climbing, walking, sailing, surfing. It could be short stories. But above all, they need to be with their friends and their peers. And our schools across the world offer a great education. And an education in our schools, the classroom is the central key part of it, but everything else is what makes it so special. So as a dad, asking my daughter to go to another part of the world, very, very difficult for me but I've got to let her grow. So my niece next year, she'll be going to Canada to study in Toronto at university. I don't want her to go, but it's not my life. I've got to support, my brother's got to support her dreams. So there we go. Go for it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Meta, any advice for parents on the fence?
So how do I say this? The research on the impact of the pandemic on our children has not even been written yet, right? It's not been written yet. But as educators, we are very clear that the incoming class for students who were not at one of our junior boarding schools or who were coming from a smaller private school that they were in person all year, we know that we're actually going to have to fill in gaps for 2 years, right? So our students actually who are coming in as 9th graders haven't been in-person school since 7th grade spring, right? So they missed half the year of 7th grade and the full 8th grade. That is a lot of learning but that's a lot of social time, as Guy was saying. My daughter just graduated yesterday from 8th grade, and she was lucky to be in person this whole time. There's only 11 kids in her graduating class because she's in a very small private class. Her social, emotional, and academic development is eons above some of her peers next year at Northfield Mount Herman, and not because she's any smarter than them, not because she's quicker, faster, better, none of that. It's just the fact that she has been in-person learning. The longer that we keep our kids online, away from those social emotional connections and away from learning in ways that we know have been successful for them, the larger the gap is going to be, right? And so our valedictorian this year, when he chose to go to his university that he's going to, one thing that they were so thankful for is that he is a valedictorian that was in person, versus so many of the students that they accepted for their incoming year are actually haven't been in person in their senior year, which was extremely difficult, right? But college admissions is our end goal, right? And even though that's our end goal, how we get you there and the process of getting you there is really important to us. And we're able to offer you lots of hugs in person, lots of high fives in person. We get to edit your papers next to you and talk you through them. We get to build science experiments and derby cars in person together. We get to kick a soccer ball together. We get to run track together. We get to, even play ping pong in our student center together and share some fries. That's what we're doing on our campus. And those are the important little connections that unfortunately your kids aren't getting. Right? And so let's get them here. Let's get them with
Great.
us.
Thank you so much. That's good advice. And Beth, I'll let you finally give the parting advice to families who are, can't decide.
So I think my advice is really centered around my own experience. I am not an adult who came through the boarding school world. I discovered it as a professional. And so I feel like I missed out. There are all these amazing opportunities that are available by this additional time and space that you have with other professionals and colleagues and students who are all living and working together. Starbucks was created to be a third space because I'm American. But in the US, there was this lack of collaboration that was happening. And so the founder discovered in Italian coffee shops that the community just kind of came together. And in some ways, I think boarding schools have always had that. There was always the time where there was the synergy where students were in class together, and then they were living and doing other things. And you could see the ideas and the connections bubbling up together. We are a humanist school, valuing each student's unique abilities and wanting them to pursue their next step and find and discover themselves to be their richest self. And I have a feeling that both Guy and Meta, their schools have really similar ethoses where they're going to encourage students to dig deep into themselves, to discover themselves and to discover a maturity that they didn't know was there. And that happens by bumping into each other on playing cricket, bumping into each other skiing, bumping into each other in an amazing science lab, or doing extracurriculars together, where that learning just gets extended across time and space. So, well, and the relationships too, the relationships bud and grow both in school time and out of school time. And so to provide students with the opportunity to flourish in that way, I feel like I missed out as a younger student, and I'm so excited when I see students taking the plunge into something new and choosing the school that works for them. I think it was Guy who said that their school may not be the right one for every student. My school may not be the right one for every student, but there is a right school out there. And so my advice to all parents is also to find the right school for your kid to make sure that your student has that beautiful blossoming experience that they need. And I'm so thankful that Red Pen is here to help facilitate that for parents, to making sure that they have a partner to problem solve, because most parents, we've never gone through this before. It's our first time with our kids. And so we have to figure out how each and every one of them tick, and how much better to have a partner to do that, and to help explore all the options. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's great advice. And a lot of what everybody said, I think is really interesting, because as we are talking to families right now, a lot of them, yes, they're ready to come right now. They're like, I want to find a school immediately. But a lot of them, this has kind of opened up their mind to, my child is a little young, but I can see, the benefits and what he or she has lost. And I want to plan this for next year. Some people aren't in such a rush. And so I think whether a family's thinking about this immediately, or they're thinking about, the future, I think all the advice you guys gave still holds up, even for those who are thinking about this in the future. And I really, I think everything you guys said about the benefits of boarding school and the benefits of students living and learning together will hold through, through the years of students, if parents and families are planning ahead. So I would hate to see that, what I hope to see is that families who have considered this now but aren't quite ready, because of what you all have said and the advice you've given and the way that you've encouraged people to think about, boarding school will mean that they don't, when school goes back in person, they don't say, oh, now I'm not interested, because I think the advantage is continues and stays there. So thank you for that. And
one thing.
Yes,
Go
ahead.
I think a lot of parents have the misconception that when you send your kids to boarding school, that you are sending them away, like from being part of the family. And I think it's, for me, one of my biggest, whatever that feeling is, you're not sending your kids away, you're offering them opportunity. And as parents, one of our biggest rules is we want the best for our kids. There's no way that so when you think about raising your kids, we believe at NMH it takes a village, right? So at any given time, we have 12 adults working with the kids through our partnership of 12. And you are part of that circle, right? So we still expect you to be part of your kids' education. It's not like you're not going to know what's happening. I guarantee that a lot of the times your kids will tell us in school something quicker than they would tell you, because we're not their actual parents. We're their pseudo parents, and they tend to be just develop different relationships with us. But you just aren't going to have, if your kid is a sporty kid, right? Whether they play field hockey or soccer or run track, we have 16 soccer fields. You just can't have that in your backyard. We have 2 gyms, we have 14 basketball courts. You just aren't going to offer that. We have, orchestras, again, galore. So that's what I'm talking about, opportunity. And on each of our campuses, I'm sure we each have college and university fairs that we, bring our kids to or help support them. We have 200 universities who come to our campus throughout the year. And so think about it as an opportunity. Think about it, you're just extending your village to include us in helping any of our schools help raise your child. That's all.
Great, thank you. We are out of time, and we have covered all the questions. So thank you so much for your time this evening, all of you. And I have put all of the contact information for each of you in the chats. So please reach out directly to either Beth, Guy, or Meta. And if you have any other questions, you can always contact me at the Red Pen. And that we will do a follow-up email to this, so you have everybody's contact information as well. But thank you so much. I think this has been a great eye-opener for a lot of people, and it's really kind of you to offer your time to help people understand better how to give their kids this opportunity.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. I'm glad you're okay.
We're all fine now. All right. Thank you.